Alright, peace be upon you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Now, in today's video, I just want to speak about a small thing, and it's so small it may go unnoticed or even unappreciated by most, but uh, we have to keep in mind what God says when he says that whosoever does an atom's weight of good, and I don't really like the word atom. I don't think that's a proper translation. But essentially what God is saying there's whoso does even the smallest weight of good will see it. And whoso does even the smallest weight of evil will see it. And these are just small things that we can do to rack up those good deeds. And they affect our heavenly balance, our heavenly account in the hereafter. You know, uh, it's like people think, or that they're under the delusion that every important thing has to be big and dramatic, but it doesn't have to at all. It doesn't have to. And one of those things, just one of those good deeds that you can do, a form of charity, a form of righteous action, which God will note on his account, in your account, your account with him, especially if you do it to honor him, is try to speak a good word to people, speak kindly to people. Try to just be a positive influence to people around you. When you see somebody, say hi. You see your neighbor, speak a good word to him. Say hello to him. Ask him how his day is. Give him a smile. Be gentle. Be kind to people. This is such a small thing, but it goes, and it goes largely unnoticed. But the people who strive to just make life as easy as possible for people, and it could be whether you're helping an old lady cross the street, it could be picking up some garbage you find on the ground. It could be, I don't know, let's say you're eating a sandwich and you can't finish the last bite. You're about to throw it out. Instead of throwing it in the garbage, you just throw it to the birds. You see a bird in front of you, you throw it in front of him so he can eat it, whatever. And even just speaking a kind word to people, giving them a smile, acknowledging their existence. We have this culture nowadays, it promotes as a valid personality type, the sad boys archetype. Oh, sad boys, sad gang. And I can't help but cringe thinking about it. We're not to be sad boys, sad gang, antisocial. No, this kind of jaded. And it can very easily happen with us Quran aloners, because oftentimes we face a lot of social isolation when we question the shape of the earth, we question mainstream science, we question the mainstream religions, the hadith. Oftentimes, and especially we spend a lot of time on the internet, it can very well leave us, in many cases, without many friends, without many people around us. And we learn through this environment to just thrive in an antisocial manner. We just become jaded. We look down on everybody walking around as, oh, that person's brainwashed. Oh, that person's an idiot. Oh, that person's this, that, and the other. But just if we can go past that, despite the world hating on us, despite the world throwing crap at us, despite just having all of the odds stacked against us, the deck is against us, still put a good face forward in the world, give people a smile, give people a good greeting, acknowledge people, show them value. Even if somebody's just having a bad day, you never know, that little hi, that little acknowledgement, that little hello, it just brighten up their day because you showed them value when everybody else maybe that you don't know around them in their personal life didn't show them any value. Those little acts of grace and kindness, they go a long way. And again, if you do them to honor your Lord, you consecrate them to your Lord, then it's just another thing in your account that you can look forward to cashing out in on Judgment Day. I try to do this. This is something I've had to learn as well. I used to be, like a lot of you guys, antisocial, weird, jaded, thinking negatively about things, thinking bad, and it wasn't serving me at all. And I was missing out on a great well of good deeds that I could just tap into and drink from if I just learned to be good to the people around me. I encourage you guys, try your best to be a pillar in your community of righteousness, of nobleness. Try to be a good day to as many people as possible. Now, without compromising, without fakeness. Obviously, sometimes you may have to ruin somebody's day if you tell them the truth kindly, respectfully, but you tell them, hey man, this isn't right, or hey, Jesus is not the Son of God, he's not God, he was only a servant, and I hate to say it, but these things will bring you to hell. Obviously, when you say stuff like that, it may make certain people upset and ruin their day, but without that, aside from the confrontation, wherever it's possible, trying to give people as good of a day as possible, being positive. Positivity is strength. Gentleness is strength. Being patient with people. If somebody annoys you or ticks you off, don't just slam the gauntlet on them, but be patient, overlook, turn away. These little things, God counts them. God does not, it says in the Quran, God does not allow to be lost a single righteous deed, a single deed of a believer. And this maybe it's slightly related to what I was saying, but I'm talking about patience and impatience. Patience is so important in the life of a believer, and specifically patience in the wake of adversity and hardship and annoyance, being able to hold your emotions in. It's so important, and that's actually the true mark of what makes a strong man. I heard a brilliant, brilliant quote, and I want you guys to keep this in your mind, that maybe I've said this in another video, but I'll say it in this one again, just in case people haven't watched that video. If you think of somebody holding a piano, right, something very, very heavy, it takes more, and heavy and valuable, it takes more strength to let that piano down in a gentle manner. That shows more strength and a formidable constitution in that man when he lets the piano down in a soft manner than if you were to just slam it on the floor and break it, right, holding something heavy. The same thing is true with handling heavy situations in your life. If somebody's rude to you, if somebody's mean to you, somebody's showing you disrespect, handling it in a graceful manner, standing for yourself, certainly, but in a graceful and as kind manner as you can possibly do, that shows more strength in you and in your character and in your emotional state than just slamming them hard. Oh, you effing piece of this and that. Go and screw your this. If you refrain from that kind of filthy language, despite being egged on and agitated by somebody else, that shows more strength. Letting down a heavy issue gently, just like letting down a heavy piano gently, shows more strength than slamming it down. I used to be under the impression that being harsh and abrasive and unnecessarily inflammatory with my words, trying to egg people on, that this was a sign of courage and strength. But I've come to learn, thank God, as I've gotten a little bit older, that it's actually a sign of weakness and insecurity. If you get off on agitating and screwing with people and pushing their buttons to make them angry, and again, sometimes it is necessary, sometimes the truth itself, even if you say it in a cordial and graceful manner, will tick people off and will push their buttons. But we're not trying to do that. We're trying to avoid that to the best of our abilities. But if that is what you're going for, ticking people off and getting under your skin, that shows insecurity on your part. It shows somewhat of a heart that likes to work corruption, cause people hardship for no reason. And we're not trying to tick people off. We're trying to just say the truth as gracefully as possible. And the way we speak, the words we use whenever we're arguing, whenever we just see somebody walking around, we say hello. Like I said, God puts all of these into our heavenly bank account, and I suggest you start stacking up those good deeds now, even in the smallest form, because those things, those I should say, righteous actions, they're going to pay good dividends in the hereafter. And God takes a good deed and he multiplies it 2, 3, 4, 5, 100 times. So obviously we want to make the best investments with our life. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's really all I got to say on the matter. I hope this talk was a blessing. And yeah, peace to you. Remember, deceit abounds, so keep your eyes wide open. Peace out. Peace and blessings in the name of the Most High, viewer. My name is Walid Naeem, and I am a zealous submitter to the one true God, the creator of all mankind. Do you notice something wrong with the world? Something strange? Despite us having a church, synagogue, and mosque in every neighborhood, how has this entire Western civilization fallen into abject atheism, nihilism, and savagery? Why does life just seem so dull, so meaningless, and so devoid of anything real in the Occidental world? Despite the ubiquitous presence of these religious institutions, why are our so-called Muslim sons in large numbers drinking, smoking, partying, and chasing after women, with no seeming desire to do anything more with their life other than satisfy their base pleasures, when God has commanded them to be clean, righteous, and responsible leaders of their community? And why are our hijabi so-called Muslim daughters walking around with tight jeans that reveal their figure, with TikTok accounts posting semi-provocative, self-absorbed videos of themselves online for the world to see, when God has commanded them to lengthen their garments and be modest in their mannerisms? What has happened here? These young men and women are supposed to be making themselves right before God while raising the next generation of ardent defenders of the holy faith. But it seems that Islam features no more in their lives other than a scarf on their head, a Friday fidgeting around in the mosque when their parents forced them to go against their will, or a decorative hanger in their car. At this rate, if God allows us to continue going down the road it is, then Islam and the Quran will become pretty much non existent in the lives of most of our descendants, if it wasn't already non existent now. If we do not take a stand soon, in a few generations, our children's children will likely be indistinguishable from the secular West. Is that the kind of world we want to live in? Our kids to live in? A world practically devoid of the remembrance of the one God and all things sane? I obviously can't speak for you, but for my own self, I can personally say, count me out of it. I'm not going to sit here and just watch my brothers and sisters, those who claim to believe in God alone, believe in Judgment Day, His prophets and angels, and all the other aspects of this holy creed, get duped into going to hell. I'm not going to let this happen without at least something of an effort on my end to reroute this dark trajectory. So, again, how in the world do we end up here? There is a mosque in practically every neighborhood in the West, and no shortage of donations that get dropped in their boxes. They have had lots of funding, lots of time, and unquestioning support from their respective congregations, yet somehow have been run over by the secular atheist. All of their so-called Muslim children go to the atheist, secular public schools for most of their week to be taught beliefs that are completely incompatible with the Quran. And we wonder why they have ended up the way they are. If these houses, and by these houses I mean the mosques, were truly of God, that were doing everything right, then why would our Lord let them get so decisively trampled upon by their enemies? Why do the wicked have all of the reins of power here? Clearly, something is not adding up. Well, it is my thesis here today that the vast, vast majority of mosques that exist in this world today have lost their way and follow a religion which is completely foreign to the Quran. This is why they have failed so miserably in the West, and it seems that God has forgotten them. In truth, the real reason behind their shortcoming is that they, and many of us, have forgotten God Himself, which is why He has left us here collecting our bitter receipts. So, what are my exact criticisms of the mosques today? As a Muslim and a man committed to the truth above all else, what are my personal gripes with their institution, which claims to be for God? The first glaring problem I can think of is that the majority of people who call themselves Muslim have allied themselves with a body of literature that is foreign to the Word of God, treating it equal to, and in fact above, the Quran itself. Of course, I am talking about the Hadith. Listen, the facts are this. There is no justification within the Quran which tells us to follow this hadith stuff, which came hundreds of years after the Prophet Muhammad died, and therefore he could have had no ability to oversee what people have said about him and determine if it is true or false. It is now becoming crystal clear, especially in the last 10 to 20 years, that many, many things that have been ascribed to him in their most quote-unquote authoritative texts, which they call their Sahih Hadiths, are forgeries that directly contradict God's final revelation. To take these words of men, i.e. the Hadith, and hold them to be equally authoritative to the words of God would be breaking the first and most important commandment, which is to worship God alone, making no equals with Him. To say that these supposed words of Muhammad, which are not even Muhammad's own words, but simply very doubtful rumors about what people who existed hundreds of years after him say he said, that have been decided upon by the scholars as authoritative, holds equal, or in fact any weight in our faith comparable to the verbatim words of God Himself, the Holy Quran, is idolatry. You are exalting man's words to the status of divinity, which should only be given to God's words. Nothing comes even close to the Quran, because God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, is its author. This includes the Hadith too, which pales in comparison and is superfluous to the glorious Quran. If you are interested in seeing a full refutation of the Hadith, you may watch my video titled A Defense of Prophet Muhammad, David Wood and Hadith Exposed, which is linked below. In it, along with refuting and putting in his place the worst opponent of Islam on the internet, Mr. David Wood, I also expose how the Hadith is completely contradictory to the Quran and the source of much of the Muslim world's problems. It is a 2-hour-long documentary where I seek to demonstrate the true character of Muhammad in the Quran, defending his history and personality with primary source quotations. I clear the last prophet of God's name from the people who have tarnished his reputation the most, which are certain types of Christians, and, sad to say, Hadith following Muslims, which have said many terrible things about him. No, Muhammad was not a money-hungry, tyrannical warlord who married a 6-year-old girl. He was a shy, humble, meek man who married adult women, had compassion for even his worst enemies, and oftentimes had a tough time even standing up for himself out of fear of hurting other people's feelings. This is all demonstrated in detail in my video. Once again, the link for that will be in the description under the tab, The True Character of Muhammad in the Quran. So that is the first problem with the mosques, the reason for which I feel they have been forsaken by God, their adoption of an apostate literature which contradicts their foundational scripture. The second point of contention I have with many of the mosques is their seeming unwillingness to say anything controversial which may make them face persecution from their government. The fact that 9/11 was not only an inside job, but the fact that no planes hit the Twin Towers on that day, and the whole charade was a hoax designed by the governments of the world to forever frame the Muslim people as terrorists and justify invasions in our countries, should be taught to every man, woman, and child. This great fraud of the September attacks has left such a lasting, enduring reputation on every brown person, and Muslim in general, that it should be discussed in every mosque. Our people are not responsible for that crime, but it was the governments of the world who carried out that plot and framed us for it. 9/11 is just only one small example, though. There are many, many other quote-unquote conspiracy theories, which are really just conspiracy facts, avoided by the mosques due to their controversy, like the fact that the monetary system in the West is an ungodly scam based on usury, the fact that the so-called healthcare system is a predatory empire which doesn't try to cure anybody, but instead makes money off of human suffering, the fact that sodomite propaganda is being promoted to the masses, including our children, and the fact that the thing which I will call the C-19er, to avoid censorship, was a hoax perpetrated by the powers that be to greatly expand their police state, censorship incentives, and surveillance systems worldwide in order to create their New World Order, and much more. These governments that have occupied our lands are de facto terrorist regimes, and the mosques seem to say nothing of it. They appear to be more concerned with not being labeled extremists while they live their comfortable, well-funded lives, avoiding topics that are hard to deal with due to the abject persecution they bring. That is my second problem with them. They're at the very least lack of awareness, or if not, perhaps lack of willingness to address the real geopolitical situation going on in the world. And lastly, my third trouble with the mainstream mosques, which can also be put into the category of conspiracy facts, is their complete ignorance on the true nature of the earth. It may sound as a shock to you, my viewer, that the Quran, the Bible, and in fact all of the ancient scriptures teach the earth is flat and stationary. This is the only model of the world which is compatible with those texts and also scientifically provable. This flat earth conspiracy, which should really be called the globe earth conspiracy, is one of the biggest lies of the modern world, we are told, and goes in line with what I said earlier about the endemic corruption of the governments of the world. Everything you have been told about where you live is a fabrication, and the space agencies are a shameless hoax. For a fully detailed presentation on the subject of flat earth, where I demonstrate the science, the history, the philosophy, the verses in the Bible and Quran proving it, and much more, you can read my book titled The Flat Earth Manifesto, which is linked in the description. This work runs to nearly 1,200 pages and is practically a textbook on not only the topic of flat earth, but the subject of physics proper, and I expose the biggest fraudulent religion of the West, which is science worship, otherwise known as scientism. As with all of my work, it too is available for free. No, you do not live on a pathetic speck of dust spinning around in the middle of nowhere in space. You live in a brilliant, intelligently designed terrarium created by God and are at the center of the universe. Again, to learn more, the link to the Flat Earth Manifesto will be in the description. Those right there are my 3 biggest scores against the mosques of today. There are more points I could bring up, but these are the major ones. These are the controversies which have estranged me from the rest of the so-called Muslim world. Believe me when I say that I would love to join them, and that it hurts me so deeply that I have to pit myself up against the very institution I was born and raised in, the mosques I attended from childhood, whose carpets upon which I walked, stood, prayed, and listened to the preaching in my earliest years. But that is the price to pay for the truth. My commitment to God and what is right is more important than my emotional attachments to a place that was once dear to my heart. Simply put, this is why I think God has forsaken us. This is why I think that the mosques have been steamrolled by the secular atheist. It is because most of us have abandoned the word of God, neglected preaching the truth, and instead chosen comfort over courageous action. That is my thesis to why this great falling away in the West has taken place. If this sounds shocking to you, if it sounds so unbelievable that the majority of the so-called Muslim world could be deceived so badly, then I simply have these verses in the Quran to show you. In the name of God, the Almighty and the Merciful. Chapter 6, verse 116. And if thou obey most of those upon the earth, they will lead thee astray from the path of God. They follow only assumption, and they are only guessing. Chapter 25, verse 30. And the messenger will say, O my Lord, my people took this Quran as a thing abandoned. God has really predicted this a millennia ago. He knew that the people who follow what is really right are few and far between, that the majority of men and women are led astray, and the people who claim to love Muhammad the most, i.e. mainstream Muslims, would abandon the glorious Quran. God has revealed to us 1,000 years ago that this all would be the case. It is my mission, therefore, by the will of God, to band together with like-minded believers who have understood the truth and work together to build a new institution from the ground up, founded upon prudent fear. We need to start fresh, start anew. We need to build a new mosque where people can hear the unfiltered preaching from the Quran alone, where men and women can get married, where children can play and be educated in the truth, and where the name of the Most High God, without any associate partners, can be remembered. We need a group of highly dedicated men who will raise and defend this institution with their own hands if need be, and go out into the world warning people of the punishment of God, bearing witness to the truth of his oneness. That is my mission, my viewer. If you found that this mission of mine has touched your heart and is something you want to get involved with, then feel free to contact me in the email below. I am located in Ontario, Canada, and I'm looking forward to form a community with like-minded believers who want to contribute to this great cause. I am neither a nationalist nor racially biased. If you follow the Quran alone and believe in the truth, then as far as I'm concerned, you are my brother in the faith. I prefer you over someone of my own kindred who denies God and commits corruption in the earth. My loyalties are primarily ideological, not racial. Remember, my viewer, that this life is short. Everything we do and don't do is recorded by God and will either bear witness for us or against us on the day of judgment. Hell is eternal, and I do not know about you, but as for me, I want to meet my Creator in the best state possible. I want to spend my life struggling to build up my people, the true Muslims, so that God may be pleased with me on that day. If you are interested in that, then feel free to join me. If not, then find something else good to do which will prepare you for your appointment with the Most High. That is where we are all going anyway. With that being said, I say peace and God bless to all of you good people. Take care, everyone.